revealing new details about a horrific tragedy on Long Island. 5 members of the same family killed in an apparent murder-suicide. Hello, I'm Gus Rosendale. That tragedy has a Long Island neighborhood in complete shock. 5 people shot dead yesterday after gathering to mourn the loss of a mother, and police are right now giving us an update on the investigation in Mineola. We go there now live.
And then I'm going to turn it over to Captain Fitzpatrick to go over the details. 41 years, that is probably one of the most horrific scenes I've ever seen. Walking into that back room of that house where these 4 victims lie after being shot multiple times. And also the individual, the shooter, being on the front lawn also committed suicide. I contacted the county executive immediately, gave him the update, and his concern for the family, of course, was first. And then, of course, asking about our officers. Are they okay? Last night, our officers sat and met with our peer support group to make sure that they can handle what they just went through. Officers go through this every single day of their life, and they take it home to their families. And we have to make sure that their care is being taken care of. The second thing that I think is very important, as a community, we hear things. We know things, we see things. And if we don't say something, sometimes the outcomes are like we get yesterday. There was talk in that community about the distress of this shooter that had decided he did not want to leave his residence after his mom died. There was talk in the community in the past that if you hear shots fired, don't call the police. It'll be too late. These are things that are disturbing to us in law enforcement, that we open up so many avenues to come to us for help. Call 911, call the local precinct, or come down and visit us and talk to us. We will keep it anonymous. But there are laws that are put in place to make sure individuals that are suffering through some mental health issues or current stress, that we can remove weapons, like the red flag law. They're in place for a reason. And we're asking our communities to not sit back. Be our eyes, be our ears in those communities, and let us know what is going on. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Detective Captain Steve Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Commissioner. As the Commissioner said, yesterday we're updating you about the fatal Syosset horrific shooting. So yesterday at approximately 11:58 hours, 911 received a phone call for shots fired. A male shot himself on the front lawn. That address is 76 Wyoming Court in Syosset. That subject has been identified as Joseph DeLucia, D-E-L-U-C-I-A. He's a junior. He was 59 years of age. He was born 4/12/1965 and lived at that address. Officers found him with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his chest. He was pronounced at the scene. Officers then went into the house to clear the house and make sure if anybody else was injured. Inside, as the Commissioner said, in the rear den area, 4 individuals were found with multiple gunshot wounds that were expired. Those victims have now been identified as the siblings and niece of the subject, Joseph. They are Joanne Kearns, K-E-A-R-N-S. She's 69 years old. She lived in Tampa, Florida. Frank DeLucia, D-E-L-U-C-I-A, 64 years old. He was from Durham, North Carolina. Tina Hammond, H-A-M-N-O-N-D, 64, from East Patchogue. And her daughter, Victoria Hammond, 30 years old, also from East Patchogue. When officers arrived and found those victims, they immediately called EMS. EMS came, pronounced those individuals at scene. All of these siblings were the children of Joseph DeLucia Sr. and Teresa DeLucia. Teresa passed away on August 19th of this year, and her funeral was the 23rd. 3 days later, this incident occurred. As well as many of you have already reported, the perception of Joseph Jr. was that he was being cut out of the will and was going to be displaced without a place to go. He did have past mental issues, psychological issues that were reported to us that we still have not confirmed. Because of that perception, he decided that day to get a loaded Mossberg shotgun, 12 gauge, approached them in the rear area of the house, and from the kitchen fired 12 shots, striking all 4 of them multiple times. He then took the weapon, went out onto the front lawn, was shouting indiscriminately about what had happened. A neighbor heard him doing this, called 911, and that was our 911 caller. He then self-inflicted shot to the chest and killed himself. As the commissioner said, if anybody has somebody that they think has issues, they should be calling us. We're not saying this incident could have been averted, but maybe it could have. This is the weapon he used. It's a pump-action shotgun. It was recovered at the scene. It has no alterations to make it illegal. This is a legal possessed shotgun. But if he was reported to be mentally unstable, this may be illegal for him to possess. Does that make sense? Okay. When this happened, they arrived to meet the realtor, as you all are aware of. They brought Starbucks. They were assembled in the den area. The brother had stayed behind. There were 13 overall shots, 12 to the victims, 1 to the subject. There's only 1 prior call to this house for a well check of him. That person had called in 2022. He was not displaying any signs of anything that we would take action to take him against his will, that he was dangerous to himself or others at that time. But that is the only call. He has only 1 prior arrest for a DW impaired. That was 1983, and that's all we have on him. Does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner, you said something about if you hear gunshots, don't call police, it will be too late. Can you just explain that?
So, unconfirmed, but neighbors have reported that he has made statements in the past that if you hear gunshots, don't bother calling 911, it's going to be too late.
Oh, like you said,
That's correct.
Can you give us any background on the 59-year-old?
On the subject?
Officials at Nassau County Police Headquarters in Mineola give us an update on that murder-suicide in Syosset that saw 5 people killed yesterday. Police Commissioner Ryder describing it as one of the most horrific crimes in his career that has spanned more than 40 years. We're going to go now to the scene in Syosset. News 4's Romney Smith standing by there live. And Romney, this is a neighborhood that is clearly in shock.
Still in shock. In fact, I tried to speak with some of the neighbors this morning. A lot of them still so upset over what happened yesterday, saying it was a completely unexpected yet grisly incident. Nassau County Police swarmed Wyoming Court on Sunday afternoon here in Syosset after receiving 911 calls about gunshots from a home.
At first I heard it was murder-suicide, so I'm thinking that's pretty bad, and then I heard 4 people murdered and then suicide, so it was something you don't hear very often, let alone in your own town, so it was pretty shocking and sad.
Police sources confirm it appears a man took his own life, and police found 4 other people dead inside. Neighbors tell News 4 their siblings who gathered to discuss next steps after their 95-year-old mother passed away days ago. Longtime neighbors say they believe the son that lived with his elderly mother had emotional issues.
They were going to sell the house, and he's lived there his whole life, and he really needed support, emotional support. And I think he snapped. You know, he snapped, and it's really sad for everyone.